Hi, everybody. I wish I could be with you today, but unfortunately, I have a doctor's appointment that I can't miss. But I did want to share some thoughts and pose some questions for you to consider regarding workshop number 3 and the practice that I put together for that workshop. So I specifically addressed the concept of meeting our true needs and using that concept feast that we discussed in workshop number 3. So, as we talked about last week, our body is constantly providing us with information, and that information is guiding us toward overall health and wellness and toward meeting our body's true needs. So, the question is, what do we do with that information? We can ignore that information and just keep doing what we're doing. We can distract ourselves and just take our mind off of what our body is communicating to us, or we can respond to that information in a healthy way in order to meet our body's true needs. So, using the concept feast really begins with that mind, heart, body scan. When we gather information, we can focus our attention and make an intentional mind body connection. We can explore what our body is communicating to us on a physical level, a mental level, an emotional level, even a spiritual level. And then once we have that information, our first job is to just accept that it's there, to acknowledge that information, and then we can go forward from there. So the beautiful thing about yoga is it is about making a mind body connection and to go to deeper places of knowing and understanding ourselves. There's a man named Pema Chodron, and he said, nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. So these triggers that we circle around with over and over again, they're going to continue. And in fact, they might even get stronger and stronger until we finally address the original need or the original intent of the information that's being communicated to us. So when we ignore it, we're actually only making it stronger. When we direct our attention somewhere else, it's really just a matter of taking a temporary vacation from the information that's being communicated. It's going to come back to us eventually. And again, it will come back stronger and stronger until we finally address our true needs. So I want to just pose the question of what are the things that you tend to kind of circle around with respect to your eating, but also just in life in general. What are the lessons that you seem to have to learn over and over and over again? Because they're there for a reason. They're there to teach you something. They're there to guide you toward resolution. So when we feed the need in an appropriate way, now we can move into that space of optimal health and optimal wellness. So what does that look like on a yoga mat? Well, when our body is communicating with us in yoga, it might be communicating to us very vital information about our safety. Perhaps it's telling us to back off and away from that pose. Perhaps it's telling us to modify or to use some sort of props to help us with that pose. Perhaps our body is telling us this pose just isn't for your body, at least not at this time. But in addition to that, it might be saying, hey, go a little deeper in this pose. But how would we know if we didn't take the time to make that mind body connection and listen to the information that our body is communicating with us? So when you're practicing, I want you to start to really concentrate and pay attention to what your body is communicating with you at any given moment throughout the practice. I promise you, it's going to not only keep you safe, but it's also going to help you go deeper in your yoga practice. And we know that the lessons that we learn on our yoga mat are meant to be applied off of our yoga mat and into our lives, right? So once we have that information, now we have a responsibility to do something with that information. That's where we can begin to strategize and identify healthy and appropriate ways to respond to the information. So in our yoga practice, like I said, that's when we make decisions about modifying a pose or avoiding a pose or going deeper into a pose if our body is communicating that with us. Um, and then taking action is actually doing it. It's following through with whatever the plan is to address those needs or to respond to those needs in a healthy way. So there's a Buddhist proverb I shared in my practice as well that says, to know and to not do is to not yet know. So it's interesting because it's not just enough to know. It's not just enough to have the information. We must do something with it. We must apply that information. So, throughout your yoga practice, and also as you're really examining your eating behaviors and the thoughts behind your eating behaviors and some of the triggers that are now maybe starting to present themselves, I want you to dive in a little bit deeper. And I want you to kind of ask yourself, like, what happens when I ignore the cues that my body's giving to me? Whether that be hunger or thirst or fatigue or stress, sadness, anger, whatever it may be, what happens when you ignore the information? And then thirdly, how do you feel when you have really met your body's true needs? So I'm in a place right now, Michelle may or may not have communicated this with you, where I'm recovering from a bilateral mastectomy. And my body feels really good. I feel strong and healthy. I'm recovering really quickly. I don't have very much pain at all. And I'm ready. It's like I want to go back to my yoga practice and I want to go back to all the things that I was doing. But my body isn't ready yet. It's only been a couple of weeks. And even though I feel like charging ahead and going back to everything I was doing, my body is saying, not yet. You need to take the time to fully heal. And I'm having to really dial in and listen to my body in ways that I never did. So sometimes when we encounter a medical challenge or our body is injured or there's pain involved, it's that much more important that we dial in and pay attention and respond to our body in a healthy way. So I hope that the practice was useful, and I hope that you guys enjoy your conversation about it. I can't wait to check in with Michelle to hear what your thoughts were and what maybe some of your aha moments were. Take care. Thanks.